Welcome to the Flute 360 podcast, where we incorporate a panoramic view of flute-related topics. I am your host, Heidi K. Begay, and this is episode 121, Tech Equipment Setup for Remote Music Lessons, Part 2. The Flute 360 podcast and JK Media Productions are teaming up to help you with your student and professional needs. I, Heidi, offer consultation work to both music students and professionals alike. If you are a student who needs help studying for graduate pre- and post-music exams, editing a research paper, interested in flute lessons, or needs help with job applications, I am here for you. Also, I have been currently working with ministries, music publication companies, and other music professionals to help them with their online projects. Whether you need creative or social media help, I would be thrilled to work with you. My husband, Eric, has been an audio and video engineer for over 10 years and owns the JK Media Productions company. If you are someone who takes or gives music lessons via the web and need help with equipment and or setup, feel free to reach out to Eric. Lastly, he is well skilled with audio and video edits for your next creative project. Please contact us today at HeidiKBegay.com and jkproductions.media so we can get started working towards your professional goals. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Hi everyone, welcome back to another Flute 360 podcast episode. Today I am here with my wonderful husband, who is not only my partner in crime, but he is an audio and video engineer for podcasters and musicians alike. Welcome, Eric, to the show.
Thank you, Heidi.
I'm so glad to be here with you today to sit down for 20-30 minutes and pick your brain yet again. And thank you so much for delivering this information. And we get to use your expertise. And I'm so thankful for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Glad to help.
Awesome. So go back to episode 120 to listen to Eric's picks for microphones, interfaces, pop filters, boom arms, and all of that. You need that list. I put together a beautiful show notes setup for you. There are links and everything in between. Go back to episode 120, check that out, and then listen to episode 121, which is today. So we are going to talk about setup. We're going to talk about how to properly set up your equipment in order for your music lesson to have a beautiful flow. So let's start with the computer, Eric. Let's talk about what you need to do in order to get your computer ready to go for that remote music lesson.
Okay, so the more and more we work with video, and if you're choosing to record these video lessons for your student to share with them, one thing to keep your eye on is your hard drive space. And sometimes the more and more we work with video files, they are much bigger than audio files, so that can pile up on your hard drive. And your computer will let you know when your hard drive is getting full. So keep an eye on how much space you have. So I would say you should maybe have about 4 gigs to maybe possibly 8 gigs of available space on your computer to store this video file and then share it afterwards. So that's just one area to keep an eye on.
One less area for a headache.
Yes, exactly. You don't want your computer giving you the signal that your hard drive is full right mid-lesson.
Nice. Awesome. I love it. Being proactive.
Yep.
Cool. So Eric, how do I clean up my computer in order to have that 4 to 8 gigabyte free space available for those Zoom video files?
Yeah, just be conscientious of where you're storing these files, and maybe you haven't cleaned your computer in a while. One tool I use, and I notice that the more and more I'm working with video and audio, I have to use a tool to help me, and I use Clean My Mac. It's a subscription-based type of software where you pay $39 for a year. It's a good tool, and it's a good way to clean up your computer in places that you have even thought of. So you might have a whole bunch of cache piling up in the system folders, and this goes in there and it zaps them for you. And so I usually run that at least twice or maybe even 3 times a week on my computer just to make sure that it's running tip-top, because it optimizes all your permissions. It repairs some connections between software and how the computer works automatically, just to make sure everything's running correctly. And it'll prompt you about how much space it's cleaning off of your computer.
Awesome. And they have the same equivalent for PC called Clean My PC. And we checked that out. It is also $39, $40 for a 1-year subscription. I have to laugh. I'm giggling over here while Eric is explaining this. About once a week or once a month, I'll go, Eric, my computer's running really slow. And I get impatient and frustrated. And he comes over. I say that he has a silver thumb, kind of like a green thumb where somebody can easily grow plants. But I call it a silver thumb because he helps the computers, which are silver, grow or work well. And he's like, oh, Heidi, come on. You haven't cleaned up your PC or your Mac in such a long time. This is why you're frustrated. And he clicks that button, and 5 minutes later, it's literally just working like a gem. So I can just see Eric coming over to my computer and just being like, oh, come on. I've taught you this.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just as easy as restarting your computer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That usually helps. When in doubt, restart your computer and try again.
Cool. So these Clean My Mac and Clean My PC, it uproots the backend files that we don't even see in order for the equipment to run efficiently. And I know you music teachers out there are probably thinking, oh my gosh, now you have me buying a $40 a year subscription on top of the microphone, on top of the pop filter, etc. When is it going to end? Yes, I totally get it. I sympathize wholeheartedly. But again, you have to remember that this is your business. And in order to make money, you need to spend money. So it's an investment, and you will see the perks and benefits for going through this process.
Well said.
Nice. All right. So we want to make sure there's a small detail. If you do decide to use an Ethernet cable, what is my setup like for that, Eric?
Yeah, it's very, very simple. And you probably already thought this through. What was mentioned in the last episode. So you want to make sure that the Ethernet cable can reach your computer. Wherever you're setting that up, make sure you have enough length, wherever that might be. Sometimes they're very long. You can buy like a 50-foot Ethernet cable where you can tuck it in the crevices of your wall and a carpet or the floorboard and make it work. So these are ways around that you can run a very long Ethernet cable to your computer.
Awesome. Cool. So app setup. I know there are different platforms that people are using for video conferencing for the remote music lessons, but the app that I think a lot of my friends and colleagues are using is Zoom. So we are going to focus on this app, but if you need help with audio settings for different apps like Skype, feel free to call us. But today we are going to focus on Zoom because it is a preferred platform. So there are a couple audio preferences that we need to go in and tweak in order for Zoom to run efficiently. You want to go to Zoom under Preferences, and you want to go to the audio settings. You will see 3 tabs, and what you want to do is you want to go down and you want to unclick the middle box where it reads automatically adjust microphone volume. You want to uncheck it, okay? Then go to the bottom of that window and you will see a box that says advanced. You will see 3 tabs there: suppress persistent background noise, disable. The second box reads suppress intermittent background noise. Again, you want to change that to read disable, and then leave the third box, echo cancellation, to auto. So those are some audio settings that you want to do for Zoom.
And I think the reason why you want to disable the suppress persistent background noise and the suppress intermittent background noise is if you're playing an instrument into the microphone, it tends to compress the audio because of the sound pressure levels that are going in. The Zoom software wants to compress those sounds, and it doesn't even sound natural anymore. It sounds squonky. It just doesn't sound like an instrument anymore. So unclicking these lets your microphone work, and it doesn't suppress or compress the actual dynamic level, and it leaves it sounding as natural as possible.
Yeah, because Zoom will have these settings automated because, it is designed for the speaking voice.
Yes.
But for the flute, we're going all the way below C4 up to C7, and those are crazy ranges.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So again, if you are using Skype or FaceTime, there are a ton of YouTube videos out there that are tutorials, completely free, that other audio experts have put together. Go check them out. I will find a couple and hopefully be able to link that in the show notes for today's episode. But before we move on to microphone setup, I think it's really important just to have a backup app in case something happens in the middle of your music remote lesson. So if for some reason you guys are using Zoom and something crashes, you should have some know-how in order to use FaceTime or Skype and have that ready. So without a hitch, you can say, "Hey, Susie, hop onto Skype." And then that is already set up and that's going to be in your favor. So, the creme de la creme, one of the big highlights of today's episode is the microphone setup. This is where you're really going to get a lot of bang for your buck for that fancy microphone that you bought last week from episode 120. All right, Eric, take it away.
Okay, so when you're using a Mac computer, you want to make sure you go to your system preferences, and then under your system preferences, you will have a little speaker icon which says sound right underneath. You want to click that, and then you want to make sure you have your microphone plugged in. In our case, right, particularly now, we are using a Roland Duo Capture EX, and so what we do is you will select that, and you can adjust your input volume there. And the input volume is your signal strength going in. And I would make sure that that signal there is anywhere between 50 to 80%. Again, you will have to do some experimentation and maybe record a file or do a test call with somebody to make sure that you sound good to them on their end as well. Maybe do a couple of those kinds of test calls to see what you're really working with. And the same with that, under those same setting, there's an output. And the output level is usually what is coming out of your computer back through that particular USB device. So you want to make sure that you click on that and see where your output levels are. Again, another good practice to do is always start 50% and then bump that level up or down depending on how you want to hear that particular source. So that's basically setting up the microphone to work with your computer.
Awesome. Yeah, because if you're completely tapped out full capacity at 100%, you're going to have some weird issues.
Yes, you're going to have mic clipping, and mic clipping is a very distorted sound that you won't know it's happening, but your student or whoever you're conferencing with will be hearing that and telling you that maybe your microphone's a little too loud, and this is how you adjust that internally with your computer.
Okay. And another issue that we hear a lot of our clients talk about and ask us is the feedback loop. And this happens when you can hear yourself like echoing through the speakers or your headphones. Probably not the headphones because the headphones will resolve that problem. But if you're hearing this feedback loop through the computer, then that's telling you that you need to, and your student needs to put on some headphones.
Usually when a feedback loop happens is when somebody in the call is not wearing headphones, and that sound that's coming in from somebody else speaking on the other end of your internet call goes into that microphone that they're using, whether it be the default microphone that's on the computer or an external mic that you are using. That sound is then recaptured by that microphone and then causing a feedback loop. which sometimes sounds like people talking over one another, sounds like an echo when a person is talking. Putting on headphones will solve this problem because there you're cutting out that sound source.
Cool. Awesome. So, for the microphone setup, this is another thing that we hear from colleagues and clients alike is, I have a really expensive microphone, but it sounds like junk, to put it plainly. And a lot of times we have to coach them through and just say, okay, how is the microphone set up? So if you're speaking and you are using your dynamic microphone for speaking purposes, make sure you have that tabletop microphone stand that we mentioned in episode 120. But then now you have to imagine yourself, the distance between your body and the microphone, correct?
Yep.
So you can even kind of do this cool little surfer, what's this called, where you do the like this Y, surfs up man.
Yeah.
And you just put your pinky to the microphone where the pop filter is, and then you do a Y, like in the American sign language. It's just literally that Y, and then the thumb goes by your mouth, and that's a good what I don't know 6-8 inches.
Yeah, I think good practice is about 4 to 6 inches
Okay.
from the microphone. And I know that sometimes, like when you're teaching music and you are demonstrating how you're holding something or you're talking with your hands, sometimes this might not be possible. But just be aware that that is happening where if you're pulling, for example, too far away from the mic, you're probably capturing more of the room.
I hear a lot of the room.
Yeah, and your voice will carry through that. And depending on how big your room is and how much hard surfaces you have, your sound will bounce off of all of those. So the closer you get into the mic, the more focused your sound is. So just be aware that's happening when you cannot avoid speaking within proximity of the mic.
Yeah, and you can't see this because it's an audio only episode, but if you heard literally Eric's voice travel backwards, it's because he was leaning backwards and then the voice got stronger and he was coming closer to the microphone. So you'll be able to hear that, but I wanted to give you that visual.
Yeah. And so this could be the problem. This could be the problem where you paid $100 for a microphone, you paid another $100 for an interface, but all of a sudden you're speaking this far away from the mic. You're like, what is it? I put $200 into this. Why do I not sound right when I listen back, watch a video? Why are my students complaining? It's probably because you're not speaking into the mic properly. Proper mic technique is very important.
Cool. So if you are using a boom arm and you are swiveling that microphone down to you, same principle. You want to make sure you're 4, 6, at the max, probably 8 inches away. But if you do have to step a little further back, project. If you have to show off posture or something, make sure you use your outdoor voice. Not that you're screaming at the student, but you have to realize that projection is key.
Make sure you use your classroom voice.
Yeah. Okay. So if you are, and all of that information was for dynamic microphones with the USB setup. If you are using XLR where you are using two different microphones, now we're getting into, a whole different can of worms. So we're going to put that off to the side. Not that we are ignoring that setup if that's something that you're choosing, but that really is more of a one-on-one consultation where we can walk you through it because there's just more details and more steps, and it can get pretty hairy over the air.
Yeah, and most likely you may not want two microphones. Maybe you just want to deal with one. Guess what? I mean, simple is best too. The simpler you have it, the more you will know where the problem lies if you only have one microphone.
Cool. Yeah, keep it simple, smarty. All right. I will say that if you do decide to use the two microphones and use the interface, and you are going that route, a little preview, episode 124, which is going to be a video episode launched at the end of August, on August 29th. We will hopefully, cross our fingers, show you some of that setup visually, so you can look forward to that.
Yep.
Cool. So let's talk more about this microphone setup, tabletop stand. What are some other factors that we need to consider, Eric, when we are working with a tabletop microphone?
Okay. Importantly, another thing you have to look out for, and it seems like this is just being conscientious of what's happening in front of you and how you are sitting in reference to the microphone. One thing that you should look out for is microphone bumps. And so this can be pretty bad, especially if you have table bumps. So a table bump is like one of these. And what happened there is there's shock happening, and that shock's going through the table into the stem of the microphone stand and up right into the microphone, causing a bassy thump. I'll do my best to accentuate that in the audio. But you want to be careful that you're not bumping the table with your elbow and your movements. Just be conscientious of where that microphone's sitting. And also, maybe you have to use the keyboard and jot down some notes, or maybe you are responding to a text messages as you're teaching. So just be conscientious that those sounds are being picked up by the microphone. So maybe you want to disable the notifications for the moment.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you mentioned the elbow hitting and the writing on the table, Eric, because it sounds silly. It sounds like, well, yeah, but you don't realize how much you do it throughout the hour lesson. And over time, like, a little thing here, a little noise there, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're doing these bigger movements that you're not really aware of, it can add up to being, quite honestly, a little annoying. So all we're saying is be aware of this microphone etiquette, and overall, you're going to have a really awesome music lesson experience.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between when you're using the default microphone on a laptop computer. They tend to be pretty sensitive to the whole room. And so even brushing your arms against your shirt can be very shuffly sounding. But if you have a dedicated microphone, like a dynamic microphone, it tends to only want to be picking up around where it's pointing, right around your mouth area. So that's kind of the difference too. So if you have the right microphone setup, a lot of that sound can be eliminated.
Cool.
Or reduced greatly.
Awesome. So I just want to emphasize that we want to give you information for you, the teacher, to be able to deliver an awesome presentation for your students to consume. So make sure your students are using headphones to avoid that feedback loop. Make sure you just understand this basic microphone etiquette, your awareness, think of the room. And if you're doing video, of course you're doing video through Zoom or Skype, just be aware of the aesthetics. Be aware of how the light is coming through the window. Make sure that you don't have any weird shadows on your face. Just be aware of that setup too, and you're going to be really happy with the flow. And the other thing, as we were getting ready for episode 121 today, is Eric mentioned a really good point in just saying, we just need to understand the basic nuts and bolts. We're not saying that you have to be an expert audio or video engineer overnight, but just understanding the basic nuts and bolts will give you a sense of confidence, and it will really help to put out any little fires along the way.
I think experimenting with your equipment before you actually put it to use is very important. I suggest that if you want to and we're available to help, we can always hop on a free call, free of charge, just helping one musician to the next. Or you could do that with a good friend of yours, saying, "Hey, I bought this equipment. I'm setting it up. I want to do a test recording and a test call. Let's try it out to see where I could improve. What do I need to do?" It's always good to experiment. That's one thing. And I think as musicians, the more we're getting into this realm of recording, the more you experiment with what you have, the better you will be equipped to use it.
Awesome. Because again, we're just giving you that awareness, this knowledge to be aware, to reduce the frustration, and for you guys to have fun during that music lesson, because that's what it's all about.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Oh my goodness, Eric, I have learned so much today. Thank you so much for these tips and tricks. What is your pick today before we wrap up episode 121?
Okay, I know this is a flute podcast, but I'm a guitar player, and my favorite thing to buy every week, I probably buy a dozen of these every week because I go through them like crazy, are guitar strings.
Yeah, that is the truth. He is always stopping at Guitar Center and he's like, I need more strings. I'm like, do you really? I feel like we were just here.
Yeah. My favorite strings are the Ernie Ball Cobalt regular Slinky.
It's got the eagle on the front.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I just know to look for the eagle package. Yeah.
That's easy Christmas shopping for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my pick.
It's good stocking stuffers. Speaking of Christmas, I wish it was colder.
Yes. Oh, that's our
pick.
That's our pick is the fall weather. Can I get here fast enough?
Yeah, fall/winter weather. Right now we're in Texas, like all of you know, Fort Worth, and Texas summer heat is nothing to joke about. It is hot, sticky, humid, and I just want cooler weather. So that's our pick. And my pick for today are Brazil nuts. I have about 6 nuts a day to get the zinc and magnesium that I need. And I really love the taste. It has kind of a little bit of a hint of sweet at the end, almost soapy. I know that sounds disgusting, but it really does. It tastes very clean. So I love Brazil nuts. Check it out at your local grocery market. We go to Sprouts. It is kind of a sticker shock. You look at the price of it and you're like, what?
I'm spending $15 on a bag of nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, but it's worth it. You'll feel really good. It's a yummy afternoon snack. And Brazil nuts, that's my pick for today. Oh, shoot. Well, you guys have a great day. We hope you are doing well. And thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time. Today's sponsor is brought to you by J&K Productions. Did you know that not only are they a production company for podcasts, but they are a recording company for musicians? Any musical recording needs that you may have, J&K Productions can fulfill that need. They have all the necessary equipment and expertise to record your next flute recording for college or graduate auditions, competitions, summer festivals, or a flute album. J&K Productions can record any setup imaginable, from solo flute, small chamber, flute and piano, and much more. Consider J&K Productions for your next recording project. Contact them at jkproductions.media. Thank you for listening to the Flute 360 podcast. For more information, please visit HeidiKBegay.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review in the iTunes store. Let's talk about flute.